drop off the call if you're not comfortable with this. And we've started recording. Thank you, Leonard. Next slide, please. All right, so this is just something for you to be conscious of. We want to say that
I wonder if is it Ulrika that's having a problem? Are there other people on the call who can still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you, Ollie.
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, why don't we keep going then? Leonard, if it's you controlling the slides, do you want to go to this one? I'll take the disclaimer as read. I think we're all familiar with what we are and aren't doing here.
Just one sec, Ollie. Joseph, are you still on the call and are you operating the slides?
I'm currently operating, correct.
Okay,
oh, Yusuf,
next page then.
apologies, I'm back. Hopefully my
excellent.
internet remains stable throughout.
You will miss.
Okay. Hope I didn't confuse everyone too much. Can we please go to the next slide? Thank you very much. So I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, seas and waters across Australia. We honor the wisdom of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders past, present and embrace future generations. Right, next slide please, thanks. Wonderful. So we're here today as part of AEMO's broader engagement on reform implementation through their NEM reform program overall, and specifically on the frequency performance payments or FPP reform. So this session has been designed to primarily provide two things. So we want to provide an overview of FPP operations and worked examples. And we want to provide ample opportunity for you to ask questions of the key AEMO experts that are working on the development and operation of the new application and process. And in addition to this, we will be providing a brief introduction of FPP and industry readiness. Now, let's move on to the agenda, please. All right, so in the next hour, we'll cover an opening comment by Johnny Mangala, who's the manager of AEMO System Operations and AEMO executive responsible for this area. We'll hear from yours truly on a brief introduction to FPP, followed by a more in-depth overview of FPP operations, which will be delivered by SME Yusuf Rashid, and most of our time will be spent on this section. And then a brief overview of our industry readiness arrangements, finishing with time for questions. So noting here again that the session is being recorded and will be published on AEMO's website. All right, housekeeping, please. Next slide. Yeah, thanks. So that should give you a sense of what's being discussed today. So I'll just touch very briefly on a few of the usual housekeeping items to ensure that we get through this in a timely manner. We ask that you stay muted throughout the session, unless we ask you to come off mute as part of the dedicated Q&A time. And feel free to put your questions in the chat throughout the session. We want to hear your questions. We have team members on the call who will attempt to respond to your questions as we go. So, and also if we ask you to come off mute at the dedicated Q&A time, feel free to come on camera and introduce yourself so we can have a conversation. And finally, I'll note that today's presentation was shared with attendees via email in the past week. But if you, for some reason, didn't receive the presentation, it will also be published on our website along with the recording in coming days. So that concludes my welcome. And I'm now going to check if I've got Johnny on the call.
Yes, you have, Ulrika.
Wonderful. Over to you.
Thanks, Ulrika. So, yes, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this presentation on FPP. So, my name is Johnny Mangala, and I'm the manager of what's called the Systems Commercial Team at AEMO. So, for those that don't know, we are the team that's been responsible for the calculation of cause of pace factors, or sometimes referred to as market participant factors, for many, many years now. So naturally, our team will be the ones that are overseeing the calculation of frequency performance payments once that framework goes live next year. But between now and then, there's still a lot of work to be done. So we will be continuing to perform the monthly cause of pays calculations, and at the same time, got a few SMEs managing the non-financial go live for FPP once that comes to fruition at the end of the year. So during that period and even before then, we are working with the project team, trying to operationalize and refine the tools and the processes, as well as responding to any external FPP queries that may arise. So that's just a little bit about the systems commercial team and our role in frequency performance payments, both non-financial go live and financial go live next year. So without further delay, I might now hand it over back to Ulrika to provide some more updates on the FPP project.
Thanks very much, Johnny. Appreciate you coming along and providing that context for us. So I'm going to jump through a very brief overview of FPP and touch on a few key points, noting that this material was provided to you beforehand, and also there's an extensive list of resources, including some pretty good videos available for you if you would like to see a more detailed walkthrough of FPP. So without further ado, next slide, please. Wonderful. Okay, so the background for this reform is, of course, the AMC's PFR incentives rule, which was finalized in late 2022. So it addresses a changing generation mix in the energy transition, which we know makes it increasingly challenging to balance supply and demand in the NEM. So this makes it increasingly important to provide frequency response to keep the electricity system stable and the lights on. And the NEM has a number of arrangements that help balance energy supply and demand, and support stability of system frequency. And the FPP does this by incentivizing helpful frequency response from generators, scheduled loads, and batteries. So overall, the changes introduces economic signals that will enable facility operators to understand their frequency performance and respond in real time. And this can be broken down into two top-level deliverables, which addresses two types of responses that units can provide to help control frequency during normal operations. So for primary frequency response, a new double-sided frequency performance payments process is introduced. In each 5-minute trading interval, each cost recovery market participant receive a credit or debit based on their frequency performance. And for secondary frequency control, a new process for allocation of the regulation FCAS cost is introduced. And this replaces the current cost of pays arrangements. Next slide, please. Okay, so in very simple terms, this means that in each 5-minute trading interval, AEMO will calculate the cost of calculate the total value of frequency performance payments, and then allocate the cost and benefits to participants, which is done in two ways. So for scheduled and semi-scheduled units with SCADA, the contribution factors are calculated based on the extent and helpfulness of any deviation from the dispatch levels. And the other way is for small customers that don't have SCADA. So an example there is households. The allocation is based on their energy consumed over a longer period, which is equivalent to the length of a bill. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. So this is just to show you, this is called the frequency contribution factors procedure. And it outlines the method to be used by AEMO to measure a unit's frequency performance. and how this is used to determine both frequency performance payments and the allocation of regulation FCAS costs. So we'll be walking through some of this in detail in today's session. Next slide, please. All right, so in terms of participant impacts of FPP, a significant amount of detail is available in the resources that are linked to later on in this pack. So I'll just, I suppose, mention the top line item, which is that the impacts of the reform is mainly on bidding, dispatch and settlements for generators and schedule loads who are cost recovery market participants in the NEM. Next slide, please. Okay, so on to sort of the context of why we're doing this now, which is the upcoming non-financial operation period for FPP. So the purpose of this NFO period is to allow facility operators to familiarize themselves with this operation and observe FPP outcomes prior to the commencement of flow of money under the scheme. So it's really an opportunity for you to consider how you might respond to price signals being produced by FPP before the new rules take effect. And non-financial operation starts on 9th of December this year. And this and the following two sessions in October and November are intended to assist you with preparing for this period. Next slide, please. Thank you. The next one again. Great, thanks. All right, so this is an example of all the extensive list of resources that are available to you if you want to learn more about FPP. Next slide, please. Wonderful. So I'm now going to hand the mic over to Yusuf, who will talk us through an overview of FPP operations. Over to you.
Thanks, Ulrika. Hi everyone, I'm Yusuf. I'm an engineer that's been working on FPP, and I just want to start by saying that the intention of this overview is to give participants a high-level general understanding of